Hello, everybody. Let me pull this up. I know there's someone here. Let's see. Participants. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morrow. Good morrow.
There you are. So I am getting new floors, so this is a little bit wobbly, but I am in one of our upstairs bedrooms and you'll hear some banging. So that's
All
happening.
right.
It is so loud in the background.
That's fun. Getting
Yeah.
some words.
We're getting really pretty herringbone floors, so I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah. But they keep coming to us with bad news. They're like, well, your floors are bad, so we need to
We need
make
more money.
that they're straighter and like, oh gosh. All right, here's some more money. Make my
Yeah.
floor flat.
Hot cells.
That's always the trouble with renovations. There's
I
always something
know.
else to throw money at.
I know. It's like if you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a contractor $1, he's going to demand 10,000 more.
Exactly right.
Here's David. Aha.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hey, David, good to see you.
Good to see you.
I was telling everyone that I'm getting new floors in my house, so I'm like sitting in our guest room and you're going to hear
Yep.
some like bang, 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 bang. So, sorry about that. I should have probably gone to a coffee shop, but this is just what life is right now. And here we go. I'll mute myself when I'm not talking. Great to have you here, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to this.
Yeah, I had a couple people say they're not going to be able to come on, but they all, hey, it's Wes Hamilton. Hey, Wes.
I
You're
saw
so
your face
fast.
in the mirror and through the window, so I wanted to say hi.
Hey, it's so good to see you. You need to write a book.
That's what I keep hearing from you. So
Yeah, I do say it a lot, don't I? And now that we've got a publisher on with David with Navpress, so now you've just met a
Yeah.
publisher, so now it's
Blood's in
okay,
the water now.
I'm halfway there. I mean, what else is there to do? I'll have it ready for you in a minute.
yeah, no worries. I mean, you're just a pastor with no responsibility, so
What was your question?
Kidneys are taking over for the Davises, right?
that's hilarious. So Wes and I have been friends for like 1,000 years, and he was at our big church that we went to, and then he went to another church, and that's where Josh knows him from. And so they work on staff at that same church together.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So how we typically do this, like I said, there'll be more people either joining in. Here's another person coming in. And the most everyone, there'll be about 30 of us that watch this afterwards. So you will be very famous with 30 people and it doesn't go public or anything like that. So you can say anything you want, David, like just any.
Oh, I intend to.
I hear you. Oh gosh. Um, okay, so how we usually do this is we do some introductions first, and then we'll get into some questions, and that's how we'll do it. So I'll have you introduce yourself, your name, where you live, and the project that you're working on right now. And we'll start with Josh.
Yeah. Hey, David. I'm Josh. I'm in Fort Worth, pastoring in a church here. And my current project it's a book on syncretism in the American Christian church.
Hmm.
And I had come across a Barna study from 2024 that I thought was really interesting. And he was talking about how 94, 94% of American Christians don't have a biblical worldview. And I thought that was really interesting. So I started looking into it.
94%.
It
Wow.
was shocking enough that it caught my interest.
Two, three,
And
four,
so
five, six.
I know, yeah, none of us. And anyway, yeah, it's just, but then it's also, so it's introducing, or it's looking more into syncretism, but then it's also looking to Christ's parables as means of, I guess, diagnosis on particular parts of like a biblical worldview. So like, how do you think of God, or how do you think of the Bible, or how do you think of Jesus, or how do you think of the church? So diagnosis, and also, I guess, kind of a prescription, like a way back to God. And so that's out and about, and just kind of waiting for more responses.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Marielle.
Hey, so I'm Marielle. I am in Wilmington, North Carolina on the coast, and I am currently about to launch my second Bible study with Our Daily Bread Publishers. I am working on edits for my fourth Bible study with them, and I am doing research writing for the fifth one that's due at the end of the year. So,
Are these all part of a series, or are these?
They started a series based on my Bible study method that I teach women. And so they're doing the Tend Your Soul Bible study series for their the God Hears Her line that they do.
Okay. Yeah.
So I get to write for them, and they're just doing like the whole line on my Bible study. So that's been
Great.
really
That's
exciting.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
a very similar vision that we share. So I love it. It's been great.
Awesome.
Good. Thanks, Marielle.
Mhm.
Kristen Crum, assistant / also author.
Hello, I'm Kristen. I am in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. I write for young adults, and my current project is a young adult murder mystery.
Yeah. How long, when is it due? Your edits?
Friday?
Yeah. How are you doing?
For real?
Yes,
This is
for
not
real.
first draft, it's revision.
Yes, revision.
All right.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
Tell him where it's at.
As far as like where I'm at, like
No, like what
developmental.
publisher?
Who's your
Oh,
publisher?
publisher is Blink YA.
Oh, awesome. That's
Yeah,
exciting. Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's very hard to sell clean YA, we have found. And Blink
Yeah.
is one of the very few places that is taking clean YA.
Hmm.
So I'm very proud of Kristen for getting in there and doing
Right.
it.
Clearing a high hurdle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Hmm.
Kristen Strong.
Well, hello. Yes, I'm Kristen. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Oh,
And
hi.
yes, hello, neighbor. I'm in the Black Forest area. I don't know where
Okay.
you are around town, but
That's why I was in Black Forest yesterday for lunch. That's why I look like this.
oh, that's great. That's
Yeah,
great. Did you go to the Mountain View Cafe by chance?
I did. Yeah.
I love it. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
down the
great.
road from me. It's
Okay.
like the little coffee shop in the woods. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I am in the idea phase. I released 3 books fairly recently-ish, 2 of them with W and one of them with Harvest House, from September. The first one was September 2024 through, and then the last one released May of last year. So
Okay.
I'm a crock pot set on low. So I'm still kind of mulling over a bunch of ideas, but I do write a lot in the friendship space, friendship, belonging, loneliness, and then earlier on I did work in the like in change, talking about God's perspective on change that we didn't ask or
Oh,
want or ask about, ask
yeah.
into our lives, I should say. But anyway, I'm doing a lot on friendship still. So I'm just kind of, like I told Mary before, yammering on about those projects while I'm coming up with new ideas.
Yeah. 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 That's quite a pace. If like you had 3 out
Yeah,
in
like a
18
little
months or
over,
something.
yeah, 3 out in, yeah, like under a year, like, yeah, like 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was fast for me. That's in April for Mary, but for me, it was a lot. So,
Yeah.
I hear
Well,
you.
great.
And
Congratulations.
my
thank you.
my most recent book, oddly, is with Navpress, and it just came
Yeah.
out, the Restory book.
2 weeks old or something. Yeah.
It what?
It's 2 weeks old, I think.
Yeah, it's a baby. It's a tiny, tiny baby. And
Yeah.
so I'm still doing lots of work with that and
Mm.
promoting it. And I've been an agent for 3 or 4 years. Kristen, I don't even know. 3 or 4 years has it been? I think so. I have 30 clients, and that has been such a joy just to be able to shepherd. And I love to take on projects that other agents won't take on because I think they're important for the conversation in the world. And
Mm.
so I have some pretty unique projects and really unique authors, and that keeps me excited and joyful. Um, and our philosophy here at Mary DeMuth Literary is that we are kingdom minded. So we help each other launch our books
Mm.
on each other's podcasts. We help each other out. We're not in competition with one another, and they all know each other. And that's why we do office hours every month. And we also do a retreat about every 18 months or so where
Oh,
we're
that's
in
great.
person so that it's not, so it's highly, highly collaborative. And sometimes on these office hours, I'll have one of my authors teach something that they've learned because there's just so much change, as Kristen writes about. There's so much change in publishing, and we need to have that, just kind of stay on top of things. And I do a lot of work with my authors on platform and mostly on the side of what I feel like works better, and that is email list. And so they're probably sick of me saying it, but I keep saying it over and over again because I'm just seeing more and more how loud social media is. It's like a clanging cymbal. And people are not buying from socials. They're buying from people they trust, either within podcasting or in an email that from an author that they've been following for a while.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to work on that, and that's kind of where we're at. So I just want to welcome David to the call, and so grateful to have you here. Can
Yeah.
you just give us a snapshot of who you are, your family, and how
Yeah.
you've gotten to where you are?
Yeah. Yeah. So I live in Colorado Springs, just down the road a piece from Kristen, and I moved out here with my wife. We don't have kids, so it's just the two of us. We moved out here from the Chicago suburbs about 12 years ago, coming up on 12 years ago, and uh, and I've been in publishing for 33 years. And most of that has been in editorial work. I did acquisitions and product development for most of my career. And in the last 5 years or so, I've been the publisher at Navpress. At Navpress, what's meant by publisher is nuanced from publishing house to house. So my work here is mostly on the brand and business. So keeping the train on the tracks and trying to elevate our profile and be a kind of brand ambassador for Navpress. So we're kind of a small batch publishing program. We put out about 30 products every year. Marion was one of them this year, which is great. Yeah, and we're a small team. I think what's distinctive about Navpress is that we are a business ministry of the Navigators, which is a worldwide partnership of disciple making ministries in national contexts. And we hit our 50-year anniversary as a formal publishing program last year. Um, just sort of evangelizing the disciple making vision and ethos of the Navigators, and also resourcing people for their personal relationship with God and Christ, and that their participation in the mission of God in the world. So that's been kind of our purpose and function, and I was drawn to that from where I was before. I had hit kind of um, creative ceiling at my previous job, and NavPress was just entering into this small batch paradigm, needed an acquisitions editor. I like a challenge until I don't, right? And I came out here then, and I went from like sea level to 63 hundred feet or something like that. So yeah, and we are um, in an alliance relationship with Tyndale House. So Mary's experienced this up close and personal. Our editorial functions are all located within the Navigators, but we work with Tyndale as kind of a back-end service provider. That's a gross oversimplification of the relationship, but they handle our sales and marketing and design, and so we have a really dynamic relationship with them, and it's a good mix of they have services that operate at scale, and we have this kind of small batch environment, and that's really lovely for an editorial uh, group, because editorial work, as all of you know, is high trust and really dynamic and intimate and needs to be done at a real relational level. And so editorial work doesn't really scale, but publishing has to scale. So we're about 12 years into that relationship now.
Yeah, I was
Makes
just
us weird, but like I was already weird, so it didn't really matter.
I was going to ask how long. I didn't realize it had been 12 years that you've had that relationship.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
amazing.
I was at a conference. I was exhibiting for InterVarsity Press, and just down the aisle from us was the exhibit for Navpress, and I got the press release about Navpress going into this relationship in my inbox while I was standing there, and I could sort of see over to their exhibit. So that's kind of seared in my brain now. But yeah,
So
so
you've
here we are.
answered pretty much what the core values are, NavPress's core values, and your relationship with Tyndale. What is your, since you're more boutique, what's your typical, I mean, I know the answer to this because I've already gone through it, but your
Yeah.
typical editorial process or your calendar for publishing a book, I'm assuming it's the typical 1 year thing, but I just wanted to ask it.
Yeah. Uh, so where I was before I came here, we published about 4 times as many releases as we do here. So when I say we're a small batch, it's actually a batch that's very small. And so that's nice because we can really curate the resources that we put out. We can be high touch on every project. It does mean that our calendar, we have to really protect our calendars so we don't overstuff and max out capacity for our editors. But so we are currently scheduling for spring of 2028. So I'd say we're more reliably on an 18-month um, schedule from contract to publication um, than 12. 12 we can do, but it gets pretty tight. Historically, 15 months has been kind of a breathable publishing schedule from my experience, and we like to breathe. So yeah, but our process, so we have 3 project editors. Mary worked with our senior editor. Her name's Caitlin Carlson. And each of them is fielding proposals either from agents or from authors we've worked with in the past, or people who have kind of a prior connect to NavPress. And they're making a kind of preliminary vetting of projects based on affinity and expertise, struggle credentials. There's got to be some not just competency, but passion and street savvy, I guess, for what we're publishing. I think we've discovered our relationship with our authors. I hope you've experienced this, Mary. It's certainly what we aspire to, but we try to have a similar kind of um, relational, communal kind of connection among our authors, and we try to facilitate that. Sometimes through retreats, uh, we host a Facebook group for authors to interact directly with one another, and we try to stay out of the way of those conversations so people feel like they can speak freely with one another. And yeah, so that means we get a fair bit of referral proposals because because people experience the editorial process with us as affinity based and relational in spirit and yeah and high touch. So I don't think authors typically feel alone in the editorial process here. But yeah, and so sorry, I
No,
realize I
it's good.
still haven't answered the question. Caitlin and our other editors review proposals that come to their desk, and if they're intrigued, if they see a good fit, they'll bring it to. We have a it's happening today actually a weekly meeting where we compare notes on the proposals that we're entertaining, and if we think it makes sense to continue as a team, we take a consensus approach. Then we get input from the sales team, marketing team at Tyndale House. They advise and we decide. So because we're because we're fundamentally a mission of the navigators, we our metrics are as much missional as they are market driven. So that's kind of how we land on what we're going to publish, and then it follows a pretty typical editorial production process to get across the finish line.
Yeah, I found that to be true.
Yeah.
I've weirdly said that I'm a publishing prostitute because I've been to all the houses. So I pretty much tell you
You might want
all
to
across.
workshop that, Mary.
Yes, I'm going to speak at ECPA about that. Um, but yes, it was a pretty typical process, and I do appreciate what you had to say about hitting mission. You don't always hear that
Mm,
in some of the bigger houses because bottom line is the mission. Um, that's why I feel like it was so lovely to have kind of the book of my heart to be with someone that was so missional, really
mm,
important to me. You touched a little bit on this earlier, but it's kind of a nuanced question. So,
yeah.
tell us just a brief history of the Navigators, how they decided to become a publisher, and then the second part of the question is what is like a wow, this is a Navpress book? Like, what are the factors of this is
Yeah.
totally like, why did you choose that particular book?
Yeah, that's great. So the Navigators are coming up on 100 years as a formal ministry, disciple making ministry. It was started by this guy who was working the shipyards in Long Beach, California, just very near where the U.S. Navy was operating out of in Long Beach. And he developed a passion for um, making sure that before all these naval officers shipped off to, across the world, that they had a good foundation in who they are in Christ and how they can cultivate their relationship with Christ when they're kind of away, and how they can bear the gospel into the environments and the communities that they operate within. So the kind of long-term slogan of the Navigators is to know Christ, make him known, and to help others do the same. So it's very practical, foundational disciple making ministry. So grew quickly. One of the first projects I edited here was the war memoir of the sixth person to join the Navigators, and he was already 102. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest male published author. And I just sort of sat back and like tried to keep up basically. But over time, the Navigators were very influential and part of this mid-century evangelical renaissance. Uh, uh, the Navigators were tasked by Billy Graham with discipleship follow-up after his crusades. So there was kind of a pipeline from the evangelistic work of Billy Graham into the foundational discipling work of the Navigators to get people started on a lifetime relationship with God. And what happened throughout that time for the first 40 years of the Navigators, it's just a very generative time, and people who were on Navigator staff, people who were active in the Navigators would generate tools and resources and Bible studies that facilitated their life-to-life disciple making work. So the Navigators is the home of the bridge illustration. If you've seen that bridge illustration, that emerged out of the Navigators. And people would write to the Navigators and say, "Hey, we need some of those Bible studies. We need some of those tools. Can you send them to us?" And they'd say, "Oh, bless your heart. Yes, we'll do that." And they had like 3 or 4 people it was probably like violating labor laws, I would imagine. But just cranking out these requests and trying to sort of keep it sustainable and within capacity. And over 40 years, that continued to grow and strain the operations of good to see you, Josh. Um, and then there were five. So by the time we got to the early 1970s, there was a recognition from Navigator's leadership that this kind of remedial resourcing of people was not sustainable. And so they recruited somebody to come in and reconceive the resourcing ministry of the Navigators as a trade-based publishing program. And he got that going and formally launched in 1975 and just took off. It went from, I think the revenues from resources in 1974 were $40,000, and the revenues in 1976 were $2 million. So just this explosion. And there's always been a kind of dynamic tension between um, the need for Navpress to operate as a business and the need for Navpress to advance the mission of the Navigators as a disciple making ministry. And so for 50 years, we've operated within that dynamic tension. And at its best, it's really generative, right? I talk about the publishing marketplace is our mission field. And so we have to operate by the rules of the publishing marketplace, but we have to retain our core identity and our core understanding of our mission as the equipping and resourcing and encouraging of people in their growth to maturity in Christ. So so it really is. I would call it a generative tension that we always operate within. And I think that's probably true of every Christian publisher. It's just that the balance will tilt in one direction or another based on, what the sort of core foundation of the business is. So yeah.
So what, like, when your acquisitions editors, when they are like, oh my gosh, this book, like
Mhm.
what are some of the like highlights of like, okay, yeah, obviously discipleship is going to be in there somehow, but what
Yeah.
kind of wows you guys?
Yeah. Over the past couple of years, and maybe you've observed this too, Mary, but we've been kind of orbiting a verse in Second Timothy chapter 1. And in the message, it says, God doesn't want us to be shy with his gifts, but bold and loving and sensible. And that's proven pretty not just compelling, but resonant, right? It grabs our imagination, but it also sort of rings true or sounds true to us. And it turns out to be um, really useful for sort of testing the value of oh, testing the value of any given product, right? Uh, these three values that are called out in this verse, bold, loving, and sensible, offer a nice check against each other, and so they interplay really well. You can be bold and not loving, and it's terrible, right? And you can be loving and not bold, and like nothing changes. And sensible is not a sexy word, I think it's really fun that this is now our tagline, right? Bold, loving, sensible. And I think it's really fun, personally amusing for me that the last word people read when they're being introduced to Navpress is sensible, and that's so non-sexy, and they just have to deal with it. And for whatever reason, I'm amused by that. But the idea that a book has to cohere, right? It has to cohere uh, editorially. It has to make sense within itself, but it also has to make sense for its context, right? So for us, that means it has to keep continuity with what we've done in the past. It has to stay within the bounds of orthodoxy. You have to be able to draw lines from what's happening in the book to the nature of our personal discipleship and its implications for our way of being in the world. Um, all these things, it's like sensibility is an anchoring idea, right? But it's an anchor that operates in tension with boldness. Like we want to be pushing forward. We want to be looking at the far horizon of what God is calling God's people to, not just sort of uh, carrying forward the past, right? Or staying in the past, which is the worst case scenario. So bold offers a corrective against sensible, and vice versa. And love is kind of the gathering virtue of all three. So when we're looking at proposals, when Caitlin and Deb and Olivia are looking at proposals, we get excited when we see a project that's stretching, right? But it's stretching from a place of continuity, right? Like that you can sort of see the line of tradition that it's stretching from and stretching toward. Um, when it demonstrates compassion and support and dignity for the reader, when its goals are achievable, and yet aspirational, those sorts of things. And we look for real credibility for the author. I think often people start thinking about a book, um, and then rush very quickly to making that book a reality. And it's a slow cook process. It ought to be a slow cook process, right? If you're given 40,000 words to something, and every word's going to count, that takes some deliberateness. So those are the things we get excited about when uh, author fits thesis, when the thesis is supported by the prior work of the author, when all of that sits comfortably within our historic publishing program, and pulls us into new insight and new ways of being in the world as people of God. So that sounded very lofty at the end. I apologize.
I like it. And it's good for Kristen Strong since she says she's a crock pot, so it works out just fine.
That's right. We do love a crock pot.
I'm more of an Instapot, so we should all like say
Yeah.
what kind of oven we are. Which does remind me another quick question before we get into the other questions. David, I wanted to commend you for your newsletter that you put out through Navpress. I look forward to it, and I am very picky about them. And so you are a really great writer, and I love what you have to say, and I look forward to what you write. So tell us a little bit about like what made you have that aspect of your job? Like what did you just want
Yeah.
to, or did you just like they said you had to, so you were
Yeah.
forced, or what was
Who's
that?
going to stop me?
Yeah, that's right. I get to do
Yeah. So, well, that's very kind. Thank you. I've been doing this a long time, and the perk of the work has always been the relationships, you know. Uh, Caitlin and Olivia are just back from the Festival of Faith and Writing,
Mhm.
and um, and this was their second time going, and so the first time was kind of overwhelmed, but this time was like family reunion for them,
Mhm.
and that's just the nature. It's the human nature of the publishing industry if you let it be, right? I think the risk of the publishing industry is that it becomes this kind of transactional, um, um, uh, kind of like a factory kind of environment. There's a risk that the press and the momentum of publishing um, uh, like pushes down on the relational aspect, but it starts relationally. Like you and Caitlin talked about this book idea. You decided whether you would work well together, right? And you decided, am I going to trust NavPress with my heart book? And we decided, can we be an effective delivery system for your heart book, right? So that's part of it. When I moved into this role, the more administrative role is kind of necessarily a little removed relationally from the daily and weekly and monthly publishing experience, and I missed it a little bit. And and I also thought, if we really understand ourselves to be in community with our authors, then we need to facilitate that community. And so a newsletter seemed like a pretty easy way to um, invite some discourse between us and our author community, as people, right? Not just sort of transactional discourse, but the Ministry of Book Publishing is a ministry of ideas, and so we're everyone in it, authors, um, publishing folks, and readers, are all idea people, and um, so we were looking for ways of facilitating that and supporting that. And it's really been very gratifying. And I do like to write. I don't have much cause to write, but I feel like we publish people we admire, and so putting an idea out to this network of idea people and seeing how they interact with the idea is kind of gratifying to me. So, and we also just want to, it's funny, someone forwarded me an author newsletter from another publisher, and it was basically, you know, make sure you get your headshot to us on time and that you wear like no print shirt in your headshot. And I was like, well, that yeah, I should probably make this a little more practical, but I can't help myself. So what are you gonna do? I'm an Enneagram 9. We never stop thinking and we never really land the plane. So
Just flying around.
yeah, exactly.
All right, a practical question for you from my authors is what happens if you had your first book and it sold adequately but not phenomenally?
Yeah.
Would if the new book that they're pitching is really cool, would you still consider it?
Yeah, so this is one of the advantages of being um, small batch and having mission metrics running alongside more kind of business market metrics. Is that um, we lead with the editorial consideration, and so a book that's intriguing, innovative, aligned, helpful, um, born out of um, congruence, author congruence. Um, those kind of books we we actually see as valuable, not um, challenging. And of course, they're challenging. Everything in publishing is challenging, right? Like no one has a glide path to success with any project. So it's kind of a luxury and a privilege to be able to sort of pick the challenge that you want to take on. And for us, the way that we're structured, we have kind of the luxury of um, picking that challenge according to values that are based specifically on the specific project. So, so yeah, I think this was probably a like five. This could have been answered in 5 words, but I don't do that. So, yeah, I think like
Enneagram 9 at work.
yeah, we are not put off by like we're not daunted by like past performance of other books when the book on the table is something good and valuable and important. So
I appreciate that. And that is very similar to my philosophy of why I became an agent. It's
yeah, it seems like yeah,
yeah, I'm looking for those projects that are not getting championed by other folks and yet they need to be for the sake of the kingdom. So
yeah,
I really appreciate that. We got some more questions in after I sent you questions, and one of
yeah,
them is what makes a proposal a quick no, and what piques an acquisition editor's interest?
yeah. Quick no. I think. Hmm. I, I'm probably being deliberately provocative by saying this, but C.S. Lewis is a quick no for me. Like, um, uh, books that signal kind of derivative thinking or yeah, kind of contingent thinking. Like, I love I love provenance, right? So it's helpful for me as an editor to see sort of who's shaping the thinking of the author that I'm working with and who are the people that push against their convictions and their imagination, and who are the people who sort of put wind in the sails of their convictions and imaginations. So I don't hate C.S. Lewis, but there are some sort of low hanging fruit geniuses, right? And so I want to see how this work is extending beyond the work that it comes in continuity with. So I'd say that kind of how serious is this author about their subject matter, right? How deliberate and thoughtful is this author about what they're um, what they're building with this book. Um, uh, I have often seen, and I think that the project editors here would agree with this. We see people who um, write out of curiosity more than conviction, and what I mean by that is that they're writing um, something that they think they could probably put something together about, but they don't have sort of a strong attachment to the topic. So like we love heart books. Like it was such a no-brainer when we saw Restored Your Life come through because it was so congruent with you, and you had given such consideration to what you wanted to do with it. And so that was um that's kind of the it's actually a pretty good exemplar for the kind of thing that we like, and that can you can cover the waterfront, right? Publishing is necessarily eclectic, but given that eclecticism, there's got to be the author has to really be married to the project. It's got to be a fire in the soul kind of thing for it to find its way and hit its targets. So does
I,
that
yeah, that's
get at
great.
it or
I appreciate what you said about C.S. Lewis because just in
so
case,
mean?
no, but just in case Marielle and Kristen don't know this, it's impossible to quote him. And
Mm,
if you do quote him in a work, you have to get written permission and usually
yeah,
have to pay. Like he's an unquotable person. He's quoted all the time, but he's never the specific C.S. Lewis estate is very
yeah,
so
yeah, and I
don't
I
quote
think
him.
that's because they recognize that same problem, right? That there's a difference um, between being in the tradition of C.S. Lewis and cherry picking C.S. Lewis, right? So anyone can say um, Aslan isn't safe, but he's good, right? Um, and to do so is reduction. Yeah, it's reducing the actual impact of the author of those words, and it's um, stifling the potential contribution of the person who's like carrying those words forward. So yeah, I think original and grounded original thinking is a big draw for me, and um, yeah, signals that people um, uh, haven't done the work are a big turnoff for us.
I appreciate that, and I think it's important to know ourselves really well as
Mm.
authors. You know, who am I? And that's why it's we have to do that weird branding work, like who
Yeah,
are
yeah,
we? When someone comes to me, what are they asking for? What are they seeking? How do I help them? Like
yeah.
those basic exercises that we do that makes us unique.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Uh, Another one of our questions is pretty simple. I have a couple of newer authors, and so they asked the question, what advice would you give to someone entering into publishing right now? What kind of new author advice would you give?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with you about the newsletter. I think it's everywhere is so loud all the time. Like I like the idea of inviting people into a quiet corner, you know,
Mhm.
and you can have a more direct and um persistent interface with your readers. So I would say look for ways of shortening the gap between yourself and your desired readers, right? Like I I once had an agent tell me sales is stupid. And he said that because in a way because I was reporting to this agent some of the feedback from sales about a project that we were discussing, and their concern was platform, right? And his argument was that, well, I how I took his comment, I shouldn't speak for him, but how I took his comment was that in the grand ambiguity of the publishing industry, right? In the like in the uphill climb of bringing every new product to market, you look for the simple solutions and the trackable metrics,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
Mhm.
like how many Instagram followers do you have, and how many like Substack subscribers do you have, and all that sort of thing. And it's relevant, but it is given far too much weight. And so I think and there are countless cautionary tales about over reliance on those kind of like shadow metrics. So I think when we talk about platform, what we're really talking about is how invested are you in the message that you're funneling through the technology of a book, right? So I often think of Andy Crouch. He's a kind of culture critic, um, and uh, and he wrote a book called Culture Making that
Mhm.
came out. You know this book, Mary?
Mhm.
Um, it came out, I think, in about 2008,
Yeah.
but he was talking and presenting on this book in 2003, and the book became sort of his final word on the concept. The book was the culmination of this thing that he had organized his thinking around for 5, 6 years, and a conversation that he had been the driver of for 5 or 6 years. So I would tell new authors, uh, think less about your platform and less about your product, and think about where is the conversation that you're contributing to happening, and how do you get in the middle of that conversation as solidly and substantively as possible. So I'm that people who are starting to think about um, a ministry of writing, I tell them, what are you interested in? Go to those events where that topic is being talked about, and just be there, right? It's almost like like reconnaissance,
Mhm.
and then return to those spaces and um, feed the relationships that emerge out of those spaces, and create running dialogues with your peers in that conversation, and you become a participant in the dialogue, and then your book becomes this sort of like your efficient contribution to a running conversation that you're already leading in. So I think it's a methodical work, but it's methodical in service of congruence. You should be writing about what you know, what you believe, what you love, and for people you have concern for and compassion for and conviction for. and those are all that's all soul stuff. It's not platform stuff, it's soul stuff. So
All right, and last question. I actually, first I'll say thank you because my first fiction was published weirdly by Navpress.
you're
Way
a
back
veteran.
in the olden days, like '06, '07, something like that,
Oh, that's cool.
like 20 years ago. And so one of the authors asked, are you, I think I already know the answer, but are you doing fiction and do you have interest in women's fiction on controversial subjects?
So we don't do fiction. Um, we
You did at
ah,
one time because I know.
we did, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We're not currently
right. Yeah, yeah.
consistently doing fiction. And that's just this whole corner of publishing that it's hard to get in and it's hard to sustain, and especially for a smaller publishing house, there are some kind of genre decisions that have to be made to for the sake of sustainability. Um, Having said that, um, there's a great tradition of people sorting through complexity um, by way of fictional storytelling, right? And so if we hear about a piece of fiction on controversial topics, and we think that um, this has the potential of being of the topic being kind of like the point of entry for people, rather than I'm looking for another novel, right? I want to there's a difference between saying I want a novel of substance, that's a fearless novel of substance,
Mm.
and I'm grappling with this topic, and I need to find a sort of compassionate, thoughtful way into the this complex subject. Like I think we would be better suited for the latter than the former.
Yeah,
That
that
makes
makes sense.
sense. Yeah.
Well,
That was like a one word answer that stretched to like a soliloquy. Sorry.
well done on your essays.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, I'm going to pray for us and get us out just a tiny bit early, but just to let all the rest of you know, one of my clients, Monica Swanson, she writes parenting books and she lives in Hawaii. Her dad died today,
Hmm.
so be praying for her. I know she's just brokenhearted about that. So let me pray for us and then we'll be on our way. Lord, thank you so much for David. I pray for him and his wife in Colorado Springs and just a flourishing of who they are and their jobs and their lives and their church life and everything, Lord. I just thank you so much for him and for them and for what you're doing. Thank you for Kristen, who's down the road as well. And I pray, Lord, as she crockpots her next book, that it would just be handed from you to her and fit her so perfectly. I pray for a blessing over Marielle's Bible studies and that many, 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 many women would get into the word because of that. I pray um, for Josh and Kristen. I thank you for Josh and his syncretism look, and thank you for Kristen's book being placed in a great place. We lift
Mhm.
up Monica Swanson to you as she's grieving the life of her father right now, and I pray that you would grieve alongside her and carry her burden. Thank you for this time. Thank you for David's generosity, and thank you for your generosity to us. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mm. Thank you so much. I love stuff like this. So thank
Oh,
you
good.
for letting me in. So
Yes, and we didn't get to meet at Festival of Faith because I wasn't there. So this was
yeah,
our
neither was I. So yeah, we'll hang out.
yeah, it'll
It'll
happen.
happen.
All
Yeah.
right. Thanks,
Good to
everybody.
meet you both.
Bye.
Bye.